Hey everyone. I saw Quentin Tarantino's new movie, Once Upon a Time, ... in Hollywood. So let's talk about it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the 9th film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, a credit so lauded they now print it onto t-shirts. It stars Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie, among a bunch of other people. This movie is awesome. This movie's great. It's essentially a slice of life movie. It's a day in the life kind of movie about this Hollywood actor who fears he's kind of washed up. A big producer tells him, hey, listen, your career is going down the toilet. You should star in cowboy movies in Italy. And this guy's like, fuck, I gotta go to Italy. And he's all like worried that he's gonna fade away and he doesn't want to become obscure and he wants to stay famous. That is Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and his best friend is Cliff Booth, his stunt double, played here by Brad Pitt. And because Rick Dalton has been working very often, Cliff Booth, who is his stuntman, hasn't had a lot of jobs recently. And so to Cliff, moving to Italy and doing some spaghetti westerns there doesn't sound like such a bad fucking gig. It sort of takes place in this sort of day in the life of these characters, and they just so happen to live next to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski, and it's just sort of about these guys, just about these two dudes who just hang out and watch movies and TV and talk. I mean, that's the thing about this movie, is that there's not really so much in terms of plot. It really is just a bunch of scenes of people driving around, talking, listening to music, watching movies and TV, and just, it's fun. It's a fun movie. I didn't expect this movie, actually, to be a full-blown comedy, because that's what this movie is. This movie's a comedy. It's a Quentin Tarantino comedy. Quentin Tarantino likes to stick his fingers into different genres, and Inglourious Basterds is his war movie, Django is his slave movie, Jackie Brown is his heist movie, Kill Bill is his Chambara film / spaghetti western, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is 100% a comedy film. This movie is hilarious. From front to back, this movie is absolutely funny as fuck. Every scene is played for laughs. Every scene is in some way leading to a punchline, and it's done so perfectly. I mean, yes, this movie has very tense scenes. They're very tense, and there is a bit of an explosion of violence at the end, much like signature Tarantino. But this is Tarantino's best effort at making a comedy film, and it works 100%. I think Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio lead really, really great performances. Brad Pitt sort of melts into his role, with Leonardo DiCaprio, I can sort of, whenever I see him, I'm like, okay, that's Leonardo DiCaprio. In the same way as when I see Will Smith, I'm not seeing the character he's playing, I'm seeing Will Smith. In this movie, I don't see Rick Dalton, I see Leonardo DiCaprio. However, Brad Pitt melts into his character. Brad Pitt is Cliff Booth. I don't see Brad Pitt, I see Cliff Booth. And, saying that about Leonardo DiCaprio and saying that about Brad Pitt, they both deliver really, really terrific performances. Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate is fine. She's on screen a lot, but doesn't do or say a whole lot. And you might even think by the time the movie's over that she wasn't really necessary to be in the movie at all, really. I mean, she's there to set up what would be the climax for this movie. I mean, we know what her story is. We know what happens to her. We know that story. And I feel like maybe Quentin Tarantino thought that story didn't need to be told. Maybe he didn't need to depict anything going on with Charles Manson, Sharon Tate, all those people. Maybe he didn't need to represent that, because we already know that story. You can read it on Wikipedia, you can read it in the fucking paper. What happened to Sharon Tate and Charles Manson's cult, it's a devastating, horrifying story, and we already know that story. And maybe that's a story that Quentin felt that he didn't really want to retell or mess up, So because we already know that story, a lot of the movie is just focusing on these two characters. And a lot of the time, Margot Robbie will fall to the backside, and you almost forget that she's even in this movie, or what is even her point of being in this movie other than to set up the explosion of violence that does happen at the end of this movie. This being a Quentin Tarantino movie, the writing, the direction, the cinematography, the lighting, the performances, everything is awesome. Everything's great. It's all signature Quentin. This movie also, though, happens to be the most Quentin Tarantino movie he's ever made, but also the least Quentin Tarantino movie he's ever made. There's not a lot of violence in this movie. I said there's this big explosion of violence at the end of this movie, but in reality, this is probably his least violent movie. Maybe next to Jackie Brown. Another thing is that when you put on a Quentin Tarantino movie, you can close your eyes and listen to the dialogue. And you can hear Quentin Tarantino. Not so much in this movie. This movie actually doesn't have his voice, really. That's not to say that it's not Quentin Tarantino. It very much is. I mean, 20% of this movie is feet. I think this movie has the most feet Quentin has ever put into one of his movies. And I mean, depending on your view of feet, that's either a good thing or a bad thing. It's almost like a trade-off, right? You're getting a lot of Tarantino in some aspects, but a lot less of Tarantino in other aspects. You're not getting the explosive violence that he usually interjects. You're not getting his big scenery-chewing speeches that exist in things like Inglourious Bastards or Kill Bill or even Pulp Fiction. However, you are getting, I think this is probably his most self-indulgent movie. Because you are getting, his love of feet, his love of old-timey, 1960s and 70s cinema. You're getting all the music he likes and at Hollywood. And I will say that this movie does have some minor pacing issues. The second half is a little choppy, and for the first half, you're sort of wondering what even is the story. This isn't Tarantino's best movie. And it's not my personal favorite of his either. I mean, granted, I've only seen it once, and I'm sure watching it over and over again, I'm gonna fall in love with it. It's gonna grow on me more and more. But you are wondering, throughout the movie, okay, where's this going? And then we meet the Manson family, and you're like, okay, this is getting freaky, this is getting tense, this is getting creepy, and eventually it leads to what would be the crossroads between Sharon Tate and then her next door neighbors, who this movie's really about. And the whole time it's these stories running side by side one another, and you're like, okay, what's the connection here? Why are we cutting back between these two people? I mean, if you know about the history of Sharon Tate, if you know about what happened with her and Charles Manson and the Manson family and all of that, you kind of know where this movie's going to go. If you don't, none of this really means anything. And I can see how maybe if you don't know about that or anything like that, you're kind of just like, whatever, that meant nothing, right? I saw this with my friend who wasn't really aware of what this movie was about. He went into this thinking that, oh, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie, it's gonna be like an action movie, and it's not, it's a comedy movie. Don't go into this movie thinking it's gonna be an action movie or thinking that it's gonna be some violent, dark, ultra-violent thing. It's not. It is a dark comedy from Quentin Tarantino, and it is absolutely hilarious. It is the most consistently funny. I mean, granted, it's honestly, it's probably the best comedy of the fucking summer, honestly, or maybe even all year, depending on whatever comes out later. It's great. It's great. And I can see if you're not a big fan of Tarantino, you might think less of this movie. You might think it's okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. But for me, for a lover of cinema, and seeing Quentin Tarantino put his love of cinema through this, I mean, it really is his most self-indulgent movie. It's just like, oh, what do I love? I love these old movies. Let's just put these scenes in my movie. Oh, I love that song. Let's just play that entire song and all these other songs too, back to back, while we drive around, 1969 Hollywood. It's a great movie. It's not Quentin Tarantino's best. It's not my personal favorite, but it's genuinely really fucking fun, and it's a really funny movie too. It's Quentin Tarantino's idea of a revisionist history, right? Inglourious Basterds is World War II, how World War II would have ended if his Inglourious Basterds existed. And this is sort of like what would have happened with the murder of Sharon Tate by the Manson family if she happened to be living next to these two fucking guys. And the whole movie is basically just setting up their character. Who are these guys? And it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I'm going to give Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a 5 out of 5. It's a phenomenal movie. It's not his best work, not my favorite of his, but it is absolutely a must-see. I recommend it wholeheartedly, and I can't wait to rewatch it because it's just going to grow on me so much. I absolutely loved what he did here. It's so fun to watch. It was a very fun movie. It's a very fun movie for a movie that happens to lead up to the murder of Sharon Tate. But it's wonderful. I very much recommend this movie. Thank you for watching my review. Please press the like button if you like this video. If you would like to see more of my reviews every Monday, by the way, you can hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later.